Ok. No, va bene così. Manda la sigla e iniziamo.
Ce logiciel répond à toutes
Si gustas te puedo enviar un par de vistas
Très
adicionales
heureuse
de
de
la
la
fachada para que
présence
pueda quedar claro cómo va a
J'ai hâte de voir votre
Hello, welcome to our second event. I'm Leonardo Schillaci, administrator of LUMION user group on Facebook and creator of LUMION World Livestream. I wanted to focus on architectural visualization and LUMION. So I decided to invite awarded offices of architecture and professionals of rendering to offer to our audience a wider perspective about approaches, skills, knowledge, and cultural background. Before presenting our amazing guests, I would like to thank Honor Publico, Tandy Jonquito, Anna and Alexander Sopko, and Core Solution. And now our guest, Khaled Dridi. In his own office of architecture in Tunisia, Khaled works on various projects, especially residential, and collaborates with architects and designers for competition and special projects. 15 years of experience in 3D field using AutoCAD, 3ds Max for modeling and V-Ray for rendering before knowing LUMION. After discovering LUMION, he founded LUMION Tips and Tricks group on Facebook and focused more on archivists. Luis Borio, 28 years old. Luis is the lead architect of the Helion project, an architectural firm focused on designing international residential projects with aesthetic innovation and contemporary designs. As a young architectural firm, it pays special attention to the digital visualization of projects using all main architectural softwares in pipeline and Lumion as the main tool in rendering to communicate. David Morini from Pellizzari Studio. Claudia Pellizzari is an eclectic designer, passionate about unique and exclusive villas. Her studio deals with architectural renovations and restorations and high-end interior design. Included for 9 years in the prestigious interior design bubble, as defined by the Times, and appeared in many newspapers and television stations. David Morini, CEO of the company, has led the studio to be the 77th in the general Italian ranking of architectural firms and the 10th firm in the interior design sector. Right? Pronunciation is Jugon.
Yeah, that's correct.
Florian Jugon. Okay. David, scusa, quando l'ho mandato mi è andato via il video proprio mentre leggevo la vostra definizione. Per fortuna me l'ero quasi imparata a memoria.
Nessun problema.
Cacchio, sono rimasto.
No problem.
detto, almeno ne siamo disturbati mentre parliamo da altri suoni video. Ottimo. Vado. Florian Jugon of Lime Exporter, computer graphic designer for over 15 years, specialized in animation for advertising and film. Florian has been working for about 6 years in architecture field. After a big work of fine-tuning, he developed a series of scripts for his Lime Exporter to facilitate bridge between 3ds Max, V-Ray, Corona, and F-Storm, and LUMION projects. The software is now used by thousands of users across the world and is a great solution to include in your workflow. Massimo Di Nicolantonio from Vallicelli Yacht Design. Vallicelli Studio designs yacht since 70s. It obtained several prizes and awards, designed and completed 160 projects, among which the famous Azzurra for the America's Cup, the 80-feet sailing yacht Virtual in collaboration with Philip Stark, cruisers, racers, sailing, pleasure yachts, maxi motor and mega sailing. Massimo Di Nicolantonio, architect and designer, professor at the University of Chieti Pescara, carries out research and teaching activities referred to yachting and collaborates with the studio for almost 20 years, being involved in design and digital processes. chat, Daniel, ci sentono, I microfoni non sono chiusi in live. Hello, guys. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, Leonardo.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for sharing your works and experiences and for realizing these videos to make us understand what is your job about. So first of all, I would like to ask you, how are you because of this period of pandemic, and if you can still work, let's say, normally, and where are you, if you're in the office or at home, how is going?
Okay, thank you, Leonardo, for the invite, and welcome to all your guests. Now I'm at office. We work normally in Tunisia. The pandemic is still here, but we are present. And thank you again for your invite.
Thank you to you. Okay, so if for you it's okay, guys, I would like to start asking you some questions. First of all, I'm interested in knowing what is your background. I mean, I know it because we all know each other, but I would like our audience to know what is your background. How was your transition to 3D world?
Okay, I will begin.
Yeah, let's start from you.
Yes, I'm architect, so the 3D world is our field. I mean, we need 3D to show to our client their project and some details. So since I was student, I began using 3ds Max, and after a moment I translated to LUMION. So it's necessary to use those software in our field.
Do you use even other software like BIM software there in Tunisia for modeling? Normally, do some customer ask for it?
Yes, there are some architects who use Revit now since 3 years ago, and personally I use AutoCAD. So I plan to learn Revit and use it in the future.
Okay, okay. So you practically communicate like normally many people do with some 2D drawings, then you create a model in 3D and you render or create some videos from it. Okay. And what about you, Luis?
Hey, hello, Leonardo.
Hello.
Thanks for asking.
Hello, thank you.
I'm an architect as well. I'm the lead architect of the LUMION project. And I'm very glad you asked about how did I start in the 3D world, because actually it's very interesting for me. I actually began before university, before I was in architecture. I just found out about SketchUp on my own laptop. I started to model very rough, very ugly 3D models of anything and everything I could think of. Sometimes buildings, sometimes furniture, etc. And since then, I knew that was something I really liked because it was my way of sharing my art. It was just a new medium. And since then, I've crossed through various kind of softwares. I've modeled from SketchUp to AutoCAD to 3D Max to Revit, and it's a world where you just gotta keep the pace and see what's working. And currently, Lumion is, in my opinion, for architects, just the state of the art.
The state of the art is more practical and used, and your customers are happy of your presentations with Lumion.
Yes, absolutely, because
it can interact with many different softwares. So I mean, you can put it in your workflow without any problem.
Yeah, whatever you're using, you can use. You can integrate Lumion into your workflow.
Okay, thank you very much, David. I know that being CEO of an important office, you are probably involved in meeting customers, talking with them, managing all the office, leading all the office. I'm asking you anyway if you can talk about your first love or when you entered in 3D world, if you still participate to this process.
So, Leonardo, thank you for inviting me in, and I'm very honored to be here with you. And yes, my first love with the 3D world was for gaming. When I was kid, I was loving the 3D visualization and gaming. And I am an architect also. I work as a CEO in the company, but I am an architect. So in first person, I was designing a lot with the 3D software, starting from 3ds to Cinema 4D and SketchUp and Blu-ray, and now Lumion.
Okay.
And,
very good.
Yes, actually, unfortunately, I don't design the 3D because I have no time. my work is another thing. But everybody in our offices in Milan and in Brescia, we have two offices. All the people knows very well how to model, how to render.
You skipped the most boring part, David. I mean, modeling itself is very long. It's a very long job sometimes, and can be boring.
So when I see something in the renders that doesn't match, I say, hey, that point,
let's
that
focus
skill
on
you
that.
have to.
Okay.
I know how to do it, so.
I still do this, but I mean, I did it almost for 25 years, and it's nice sometimes that someone else do this, and you just check and correct if there's some detail that doesn't work, and participate maybe to the presentation, to the final presentation more. Okay, thank you very much.
Correct. Thank you.
Florian, what about you?
Hello, everyone. I'm a CG artist generalist. I worked for cinema, and now I'm work for architect. I use 3ds Max, V-Ray, Corona, F-Storm, and Lumion. My workflow is really simple, and I'm also the creator of Lime Exporter, who allow to export your model from 3ds Max to Lumion. That's all.
And so practically, even being the founder of Lime Exporter, you still work and collaborate with someone else, with an office of architecture. What about this office? Where is it? Where you are now?
I'm at home, but I work in offices in Switzerland, and it's architecture principally.
You're responsible of visualization, modeling, and 3D visualization.
Films, and virtuality visit. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Massimo.
Yes.
What about you? I want to know, I mean, we know each other good. I collaborated with you in your office, in Valiselli office, so I know what you do. I would like that you talk about your background first, and then later we're gonna talk about how it works in the office. That is very interesting.
Okay, Leonardo. First of all, thanks for this invitation, and at the same time, thanks for the training that you had with me in the Valicelli studio in Rome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this canvas.
It was very interesting experience for me. About my background, my feeling for 3D modeling starts since the year of university education by using first software for bidimensional drawings, and then 3D modeling, and at the end for representation. About Studio Valicelli, the transition to the digital tools starts from the early 80s. First of all, look to digital computational methods and research for fluidodynamics, hull performance, relating with the sailing yacht, in the specific. After that, there was an evolution to the bidimensional drawings and 3D modeling. And actually, we are working very hard with the visualization, not only final visualization, but with the visualization in progress, because as you know, it's very, very important to visualize concept design and concept developments in different phases to understand significant complexities of these specific artifacts, because sailing and motor yachts are very complex machine and need very hard control by architect, designers, and operators. So it's necessary for us a constant upgrade of our cultural background. And about the workflow, I can say that in the specific, I operate with Rhino, and first of all, we had the 3D Studio Max, Lightwave, Maxwell Render, and at the end we have LUMION as a very good software for interior control and representation of interior design. Okay, which is an important part of the workflow of the Studio Valicelli.
Very good. We're gonna go deep in workflow in a bit. I wanted to ask, because knowing you, I know that you teach. You are a professor, associate professor in University of Chieti Pescara. And I wanted to ask you if in our university in Italy, because we are both Italian, but in general, if now students like you, professionals, are involved in these digital processes, if they are able to manage them, if they start early to work with everything, and if this is a big improvement in learning.
Okay, of course, it's a big improvement. It's a necessary improvement. And at the same time, I can say, looking to my students of the Bachelor in Design and Master degree in Architecture, that they start from the first year, from the first semester, so from the beginning of their study course, to apply with digital skills. As for example, for the traineeship that they can make in Europe inside the Erasmus program, our students are specifically looked as students that must train with digital skills. This is a great difference looking to other fields. Okay, so from the beginning they start to work with bidimensional drawing, three-dimensional modeling, and in the specific of architecture with the BIM. So, for example, Revit.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, there is not something similar to Revit in yachting, I imagine, or there's some software that can manage components and manage model information? Because I know that, for example, in train infrastructure, even Revit is used. There is something similar in Yoctin. I mean,
I suppose that in these last years there is an improvement in this way, but yachts are specific artifacts. We can say of yachts that these are products.
Yeah,
product is different from architecture. It's more complex, relating technical aspects, but it's I suppose more free.
So I mean, there is a lot of tailor-made.
Yes, it's tailor-made project
job. It's difficult to apply categories, elements, and just to copy paste and to use parametric modeling.
Yes, but in the last months we are trying with other application to apply something like BIM.
Yeah, I know that you work with Rhino. Many of us here work with Rhino. Of course, Grasshopper is a good way to interact with Dynamo in Revit, and also now Visual Arc that can work as well. So I hope that in future we will have both worlds put together, one that leaves us free to work on our creativity and to create interesting and complex shapes, and another one that can take all these informations in creating, let's say, a virtual model, info model. Very good, very interesting.
A research network specific in this.
This is your specific. Okay, very interesting. I hope that I will see something about it.
Okay,
very nice.
Thank you.
Okay, so about this, actually, probably what it would be better to ask you now is in this big activity that is very complex and touches different fields, how much you dedicate to the render activity, modeling and rendering activity. We are all professionals, and I would like to know how much in percentage.
Okay, for me, Leonardo, I mean, the first step I do is to sketch my design and then to enter in details. So the search take a part of the development of the project. So for me, I practice more on Lumion because I'm not old user of Lumion for sure. I'm still practicing to learn more details in Lumion. So let's say in a week, every day I put 1 hour for development in 3D render.
Okay, so let's say not much. Let's say that in a normal day of,
yes,
it should be normal, but many of us work until night, above all if we stay in front of computer, but let's say that can be around 10-20%, no more, okay?
Yes.
So you still can do the, let's say, the normal activity of architect, doing projects, talking with customers, and is a smaller part, is not all your job. What about you, Luis? How much time you dedicate to it?
That's very interesting what Khaled just said, because I have very different experience. Actually, sometimes I am 3D modeling before the plans are even done. Most of the design I can tell is decided on the 3D model. And of course is, at least on the Helium project, is one of the main focus to let the client have the experience of the 3D model in full. And even sometimes, of course, you need to show the plans and organization before, but whenever we can, we like to present the project all as an already 3D model in Lumion, of course. And I would say that at least 50% of the time designing the project, it's going to be 3D modeling.
And do you model directly? I mean, do you first sketch by hand on some paper and then you start directly modeling, or you investigate more by hand and in 2D, and then you model, and when the model is good enough, you interact with your customer and make him enter in the 3D to understand and to have his opinion, let's say?
Yes, of course. I always do pen and pencil sketches, but most of the time I am designing over the 3D model. I like being able to show the 3D space to the client. Actually, with the situation we have right now, it's been easier to be able to show your work because unlike previous years, most of the people, no matter the age, they are actually using some kind of uh, streaming platform to talk with colleagues, etc. So it's made it easier to show the progress on the 3D model.
And during the pandemic, you have let's say sessions of Skype or other softwares to share to your customer. So you share your screen, and it was like this. Okay, so presentation are like this. Okay. David, what about you? And I mean, the office and Pellizzari Studio, what is your normal, let's say, percentage dedicated to modeling and rendering? Or probably you have some resources, some collaborators that do that all time, and some other people design?
Yes, in our offices we are 12 people, and on 12 people there are 4 people that do the renders every day, all the time, and they are focused on it. And we are architect, interior designer, product designer. So we have a workflow that keeps from the draft until the render. One thing that I think that is important, and it's our approach for our customers, for our client, that we don't give to the client the renders on the first meetings.
Okay.
We wanna build a project, a sensation, and we give them the 3D renders when the project is defined from with us and the customer, because I think that the renders is not a tool that you have to continue changing and modify this and modify that. No, we think that the render is very important. I show you what will be the final result in months, because we develop and we construct the houses, the villas, and we wanna transmit to the client the importance and the weight of the renders. That is, I think that is very important in our workflow.
Actually, this is a question that I wanted to ask you guys later, that maybe we can start to talk about even now in going on in this, let's say, talk about render, communication, importance of it. And actually, it's very simple. We see a lot of architectural contests, and I'm always scared of some kind of renderings. Many of them are exaggerated, oversaturated, with a lot of effects, and they practically in some way are creating a globalized architecture in which the language is all the same. So sometimes the tool is more important than the project itself. And I'm scared too, when I talk with some customer, to show the render too early, for a simple reason. First of all, because many times the render is not useful for me, because I can project without the render. Only in some projects I need to check something, so I use the render to see if materials can stay good together. But actually, it's a way, a tool to communicate. But as a bad side effect, that many people focus on the color of the sofa rather than on the project. Then they're gonna tell you, "Oh, I don't read that book. I don't have that book that you put in your render. I have another different chair or some other stuff," when I don't even care about the chair, because we are at the first phase of the project, maybe more about functional distribution, organization, light, many times this bring the discussion somewhere else. So it's complicated. We need to be aware that sometimes render itself not only changes the perception of the projects, but put it on second plane, less important. I mean, I don't know if you think the same about it. What do you think, Florian? Because, I mean, you are expert in rendering, and even your role in this office is about rendering. So do your team prefer to have different phases and then show the render only at the very last moment?
Oh, rendering take more than half of my time. The modeling is pretty fast. I often have to remodel while rendering, so I often have to change materials or test some things. That's the finale of the image. The rendering is the most important part for me, because you need to work on the lighting, on the materials, on the bump, on the diffuse, and we work all the image in the same times. We model the fastest as possible, and we put a light, an HDRI, and we try to render the fastest way possible, and not lose time to have conversion or to switch different software.
Okay,
So,
but I mean, if I think, because of course rendering is important, but it's still a tool to communicate projects that then need to be realized. So what I would like really to know is, if in your processes that goes from the idea to the realization, I would like to know when we can put the render, starting of creating models and render, because sometimes it's probably not important. For example, we work a lot, then we have to do revisions with the customers or revisions with other professionals, engineers, experts for, I don't know, mechanical plumbing systems and so on. So we need to change it. We change the model, we do another render, we create. In which moment is good? Because I even know that, for example, with Valiselli, we're going to talk about this. I even know that they need from the very beginning, but I'm asking to you guys, is that really so important from the very beginning? Do you need it, or is it just for the customer to make them happy? And by the way, what they ask to you, is it all paid? All these works of rendering is part of the project, or is some extra? And they ask images, clips, video.
Okay, I will reply to you, Leonardo.
Yes.
Okay, I'm okay with Luis and with Florent about the importance of 3D render, but we have to make a render that we can execute in the future, because choosing some materials or working on some concept, for example, here in my country, techniques of construction is not too developed comparing to Europe. So I have to give an image for the client that he can execute.
That he can execute. So it's useless to dream about space projects, yes, but we need to use it to be realistic and to give the exact representation of what it will be. Luis, you wanted to tell something about it?
Yes, one of the things I always say is that plans don't tell the full story. And most of the times, the clients don't have the same ability we architects have to interpret plans. So sometimes the 3D model is the tool for them to be able to understand what you're trying to say. Because sometimes, in my experience, there is something you know it's going to be very impactful, very important, but you see it in plan and it doesn't have the same impact. And sometimes you just need the client to believe you that you know what you're doing, and when dealing with renders you skip that step of convincing, and you can actually say, I know in plan this is not very impressive, but if you see it here you will know what I mean immediately, and it works.
Understand. So it works, they are happy, you can realize the project, and then as an architect, then it's your responsibility to make it work for real.
Yes.
But I mean, you can use it to make them happy, of course, even for that. Massimo, as we were talking before, for you is instead impossible not to render from the very beginning, because being a process that is in continuous development, tailor-made, with a lot of changes and small details, you practically have to stay on 3D all time and on projects all time. How it was the interaction with architect Valicelli, that is the founder of the office?
Yes, this is very interesting because, for example, for us, it's very important, the first phase, which is a research, which is the phase for the research, look into specific project. At the same time, we have to understand the needs of the users, of the final users, but there is an intermediate step, which is the vision of the marketing. For example, looking to big shipyards, which have an important part in the marketing phase. So it's necessary for us to arrive as soon as possible to our first visualization, which is very complex, but at the same time, it must be complete. After that, we can have a long phase of concept development, look into exterior and interior. Interior is more specific than exterior, because exterior for us is I suppose very simple to develop. For the interior, there are particular dynamics that for which it's necessary a good visualization for the marketing, for the final users or specific customers. In yacht design, this is real and true. Look into, but I want to clarify one particular aspect. In the Valicelli studio, there are the Alessandro Nazareth, which is the engineer, and Andrea Valicelli, which is the architect, who is the architect. Then there are other figures, as you know, Virgilio Castellana, Adriano Chai, and myself. Everybody has specific skills and apply these specific skills to bidimensional and technical design, to three-dimensional modeling, and and visualization. For example, for the visualization of the exterior, we use Maxwell. For the interior, we use LUMION. Before this moment, my workflow was focused exclusively in 3D modeling. But for specific project, I spend more time in interior representation and not in 3D modeling of spaces of exterior interior solution. Okay. One curiosity. My collaboration with the Studio Valicelli is it relates to the first 2000. So I'm able to understand the feedback of my professor, of my architect Andrea, only by phone.
Only by phone. So you don't need even to have any sketch.
We don't need
now it's so
we don't need visualization of pre-visualization, shading, or rendering.
So the render is used
the needs of my professor only by phone.
Okay. So when
this is very, very important. This is the main focus, because from this point I'm able to make everything.
Okay. So practically, when you receive indications of something to correct, to improve, to change, then you use render, in this case, for example, LUMION, to have his feedback, to send to him and to say, okay, so it's this that you were asking.
Yes, because the main important question is relating to mankind and to languages.
Of course.
LUMION, as Rhino, as other instruments, is a tool, is an extraordinary and important tool, but is only a tool. But is an important and extraordinary tools involved in the design process. So it's not only instrumental. In this way, LUMION is an extraordinary tool for project development.
Yeah, because it's fast, and so you have a feedback
but it's fast,
very soon.
But it can be fast if the feedbacks are clarified by the starting point. Okay,
of course.
I suppose this is one of the strengths of the Vallicelli studio.
Of course, yes, I can confirm because I saw it directly.
Yeah.
Okay, so very interesting. Now, let's say that we saw this from professional's point. Now I want to ask you, what do you see about the future? What it will be asked to us? What is the future of rendering? What is the importance of development and research? And if you see some direction, where are we going?
Okay.
It's open to everyone, guys.
Okay. Development is very important in our fields, Leonardo. So each one have to be up to date, because we look now on internet, we find multiple softwares. So we have to be updated to know which software to use for each project. I mean, I didn't use before LUMION. I know it, but I wasn't convinced by the quality of the render. I was a user of VRI. So
this was 3-4 years ago, before knowing it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I had a project in which I had to render an animation, and it was a big project. So it was for me impossible to render it on VRI.
Just impossible. Okay.
Yes, impossible to render it on VRI.
Change platform. Yes. Of course.
So
you would need 2 months.
I began using LUMION 8. My first render was on LUMION 8. I rendered a full animation on it, but I had to invest in material. I mean, I bought a new graphic card.
Of course.
So to be up to date, we have to invest in our material too.
Yeah, hardware is fundamental. Of course, all the time that we save is practically used to learn to improve the quality of our results. Of course, and in big offices, do you have some fixed amount of percentage some fixed money or a percentage of the income that is dedicated to buying new hardware? This I can ask, me, Khaled and Luis, we are lead architects of our own office. And so I think we three decide where and how much to invest. I know every year that I have to buy the best computer, again, the new one. Then I save the others for other tasks, but every year a new one, every change, every new series of NVIDIA, because LUMION needs NVIDIA GPU, at least until 1 year ago, was the only one that you could use for real. And so I know what is the amount. And what about Davide, Florian and Massimo? In offices with many people, what is your organization? How much often you change computers, and how much you invest?
In our offices, we change and we upgrade our computer every 18 months, 24 months at maximum, with no limit of expense, because if I have old hardware and the people that work for me are slow for the hardware, I'm losing my money. So I prefer to invest in our infrastructure, in our hardware, and yes, we have to continue upgrade for sure our computer.
No, so they are happy. Your collaborators are happy because they have big
Yes.
screens and fast computers, nice
Correct.
GPU. You know that for some of us, it's like a dream to have the best computer, the best workstation. Sometimes is really problem solving. Florian, what about you? I even know that you bought new servers for Lime Exporter, so you need great performances across the internet too.
Yeah, I need to have a great bandwidth for the Lime server. I don't own it. It's a distant server. And yeah, it's a powerful server with a Xeon CPU. He doesn't have a GPU.
Okay. Because that script works only with CPU. I mean, you don't need
I don't
calculation, of course.
And in our office, we change the computer every 3 years, maybe. But we invest in the GPU because it's the most important part now in the computer. You don't need to have a great GPU, CPU, but you need to have CUDA core. It's most important things. On my computer, I have the last RTX, and I have three graphic card in the same computer to have a powerful rendering and fast rendering.
Okay, so you can use them when you work on V-Ray. You can use
no, on MStorm.
Of course, on FStorm, because
I use
some problem using NVLink and other bridges to connect more GPUs, and they don't work on Lumion, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about? I think that we all here are NVIDIA users, even if I'm sorry for MD that is doing very good new series of GPUs, but being Lumion users, we always needed CUDA, and anyway, we always needed that kind of performance. And what about RTX? Because I imagine that it will be out soon on Lumion as well. But do you see the difference? Do some customer of yours asked for VR experience in RTX with real ray tracing? I mean, is really evolving in the same direction of video games. Because I'm not sure about it. I work with VR as now like 5-6 years. That with other guys I work with Unreal Engine, and it's not so. Only in few situations we were forced to create some VR. It's not so asked. It's not so useful. Still not used much and not requested by customers.
I believe that first of all, Lumion has come a long way. I've been using Lumion since Lumion 4, and finally now I believe it's in a state where the real-time presentations you can do are actually very believable. Of course, I'd like to, as a user, I have no idea of how complex it can get, or if it's even possible in the near future. But it would be very nice if you could have real-time ray traced lighting, ray traced reflections in Lumion, because of course you need to share your fully rendered projects, but being able to show in real time your project and being able to show whatever view you want to see, it's something we weren't able before Lumion, at least for me. I know I've used, for example, Cinema 4D, Unreal Engine 4 that is able to run a model in real time with ray tracing, but I still prefer Lumion because for me, the thing I like about Lumion is that it takes care of the things you don't want to waste time on. I don't want to waste time on setting up the entire environment every single time, or the mechanics of, for example, in Unreal Engine 4, you need to set up how your not only your materials, but how they're going to behave and present in the world. And being able to have that taken care of, it's one of the things that make Lumion so attractive.
Okay, so saving time, I mean, it's good because you can focus on some elements of the scene and on the projects even more. And
it's extremely optimized for architects.
So probably what we should ask now, if it's so interesting, always look for the best photorealism in our renders to arrive to the best quality, to make it almost real. That is the same kind of research that we can see in video games, for example. Try to have best rendering, always more real. Or if it's sometimes better to focus on other details, on some other stuff. For example, in yacht design, I think that there is a very important feedback that is this. I'm going to spend 50 million euro to realize this product. Okay, I can invest a lot of money to just have the most similar result. That's why even they do a lot of modeling, real modeling, I mean. They a lot of prototype, everything is tested because everything is a big investment. For example, if we are doing the design of an house, maybe like I saw with Pellizzari, I can rather bring the piece of material, that piece of wood, that piece of glass or the tent, and to show to the customer, and maybe just have a 2D and say, this goes there. You're gonna see it near. I create a maquette, collage of materials and something. Instead, in a sector in which there are so much money to invest, and it's so important, and maybe an object is realized only one time, only for that purpose. There is no industrial chain of production like in chairs and any other object that we can put in a house. So maybe in that one, the realism is even more important.
Can I answer, Leonardo? Sure. Okay. Yes, of course, is as you said, it's all you said is correct, but we must focus our attention to our professionality. Okay, so it depends from the dimension of the studio. It depends from what kind of collaboration inside and outside of the studio you have, and what is your main purpose. Because if your main purpose is the design development, exterior design development, or interior design development, if you have, it depends from the needs of the not the final user, but in this case, in this way, by the figure in the middle, so the commercial figure of the shipyard, and what kind of feedback he need to present to the final user. You can work to the main concept, to the general solution. You can give inspiration, or you can work like the specialist of the interior design, design the detail, testing the detail, realizing the prototype of the detail. There are different levels, no? And there is every project is different by others. It depends from the how I can say, from the kind of contract that you have with the other part, no? So you can explore, and in this way it could be necessary to perform final representation in detail, in this way, you need the workstation, you need the graphic card, you need memory, you need to improve your workflow. Or it's true, on the contrary, that you can stop your workflow when on the other side you have other figures that can enter inside the process in specific meanings of the project. You understand what I
of course I understand. But for example, I saw your models in 3D.
Yeah.
They were very accurate.
Yes.
Of course, even with collaborations of other professionals.
Yeah.
For example, for testing the structure, calculate it, and all the software that you said about developing the main structure, because everything that you put inside a yacht first needs to be realized after knowing the final shape that it has. So everything then has to be created to take that space that is left, and there you cannot lose any space. You need to use it all
space, all millimeters. Yes,
all millimeters. And when you draw this with Rhino, there is a powerful software that helps you to interact with these double curvature shapes. Then you're gonna create something, and you have an information that can be easily sent to some professional with 3D printing, another one with a 5-axis CAM machine that can and curve, let's say, create it, and so on. So then, as an office, probably an important office of the yacht design, you will have all back, and you're gonna give evaluation of all efforts of other professionals. Yes. So let's say that software's modeling and rendering is even good to have a direction to control, to direct everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And Davide, wanted to ask you another stuff. You go out with a lot of pieces of materials even when you meet customers, because I know that, of course, you often need to travel because you don't have customers only in your area. We worked together, and we saw, I mean, let's say even we worked together because I'm on the side of the society that is building one big villa that you have here in Rome. And so sometimes, let's say that your normal kit is one bag for material, another bag for computer, another big bag for drawings, and you put everything on the table, right? So sometimes renders are less, let's say, less realistic because you can show the real product, finished product, to the customer.
Correct, correct. The render are including the project, the materials, and everything. So, and with an iPad, you can show to the client the result. We have a research of materials in our studio, and so many times we use strange or particular material that we want to show it to the client directly, and we want to they touch the maquette, the mood boards, but the render is great because you can have it in the environment, and you can give your idea to the other people. You can transmit the idea from head to head through an image that is the render, and I think it is great. This is great.
Okay, guys. I would like to give you a bit of space. Instead of asking you the last question, I would like that each one of you say what he thinks that is more important, let's say, to create a bridge from language of communication, rendering as a language of communication, and your specific job. If there is something special that you want to say that is related to your profession. I mean, when they're free, they're more complicated questions, I know, but I would like, knowing that you all do different things, I would like that each one of you give a message to our customers before, to our customers. Yeah, maybe to our customers, but even to our audience before saying bye.
Okay. In our field, Leonardo, generally we have to focus on the project design, and we step by step focus on details, like Massimo said in his workflow. We have to focus on some details. So in generally, as we are in LUMION World live stream, I will give some advices for the users that they have to practice. They don't take any setting from other users. They have to practice on the software to know each setting what change in the software. So as I'm founder of LUMION Tips and Tricks group, I recommend all users to give their design its time and forget about the render, because the render, like Louis said, LUMION give us the time to develop our project. We don't think about the render time.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. Good suggestion. Good suggestion. Now the quality is standardized. I mean, as another standard. It's easier for everyone to reach a good level. So, and by the way, another stuff, LUMION helps us, but Lime Exporter helps us a lot too, because now every kind of library we can use everywhere. Before it was complicated to being a V-Ray or Corona user and a LUMION one, because every time you need to start everything from zero. Your message, please, Florian, in your message, include something about Lime too, because anyway, I find it very important. I saw that many people started to use it, and this goes in the same direction. Save our time to do what is really important.
The world of 3D have changed since 5 years old. Now we have a big library of models, plants, tree, chair, sofa, and today you don't need to know how to build to model a 3D model. You can get it in a library. Lime allow you to get the 3ds Max library. For me, it's the biggest library in the...
Yeah, because for years it was the best standard, so you can find everything.
Yeah, because all people, I think 3ds Max, it's a good bridge on every software, because he have a good language to script. So many users use 3ds Max because they can import from Revit, they can import from Rhino, and the FBX format, it's really good. And 3ds Max have this advantage. Lime Exporter version 2, it's an online converter, so your conversion is not made by your computer, but by a server, a distant server.
So you don't need to pay for another license. You don't need to be owner of 3D Studio Max.
Yeah, you don't need to own 3D Studio Max. And I've opened a large door yesterday. I've put on the interface of Lime on the website the possibilities of non-3ds Max user to upload and to send to the server the file, a 3ds Max file. So no, you don't need to understand and to get 3ds Max yourself. You can just download a file from many sites like a 3D Zip or a 3D Brute or anyone.
Okay, or to buy Evermotion, a very high quality model. So practically it's kind of a Rosetta Stone that you create. Yeah. It's something that can make different languages interact, and people are gonna save a lot of time using all libraries that they can afford, that they can buy everywhere, And what about the possibility of using animations now? That is the next step that some people is asking. Do you have, in perspective, this possibility even to import and transform animations?
I have found a way, but it's like the other way. It's like the old way. You know, it's to duplicate the animation every frame.
Frame for frame, I know.
Yeah.
I know this script, and it's the one that I'm using now. It works with every software, so I can import every animated object. But of course, it creates huge models, very slow.
Yeah, it's work. If you want to have curtain, you know, you want to wind in the curtain, you can use it. It's create great animation. But actually, no, I don't have found the vertex animation. Lumion lock every animation, and they try to lock the possibilities to get a great animation. So it's
we don't know if it's still because of some let's say software problem, or is some choice of developers that didn't want to get too much freedom because they have a huge library and they want you to use their library.
Oh, I think because Lumion use specific way to get animation. I think they use skin model in the skin morph, and it's practically impossible to recreate the same environment.
Okay, so we will have to probably wait for some changes, or to use the old style, the old way of animations to use animated libraries.
Yeah, okay. I think so. It's the same for the bump map. Lime allow to export normal map, rather bump map, but Lumion lock this feature, and when you import your model from Lime,
you're gonna only have diffuse, so you have to manually put it.
You only have diffuse,
I thought that this was a standard format problem, different standards, and not only Lumion, because still, like always, all these software houses, they want to have some, let's say, privacy, okay? So they want to have these privileges, don't want to share probably all resources. Okay, thank you very much. David, your message to our audience.
The message is the practice and be professional.
Okay, no, I'm sorry, because you know that Khaled and David, if I say fast, they can even seem similar. I asked to David because I know, Khaled, that me, you, and Luis will stay other, let's say, 20 minutes to go deep in some technical things about Lumion itself, about to answer to our users on our groups. So, David, before saying bye to you, what you want to say? I mean, you're free to talk with our audience directly.
Yes, it's an open reply, and stay on the topic. I think that the 3D renders, as said, will be more important in the future, more than now, and more than the past, and I hope that I am linked to my last speech. I hope that for everybody, for all the professionists, I don't talk about the 3D renders, because the 3D renders give importance to their work, but to the professionals, like the architect, like the engineer, like the architecture firms, give more importance to this work, because it's an art, and it's not just a game to I want to give you an impression, you know. Is very important, and this work, this art, has to be understand the real weight that has in the design process. This is my hope.
Thank you very much.
Future.
So, okay, welcome to rendering, but beware, there is something behind that is even more important, and it's just a tool, like Massimo was saying. It's just a tool to communicate, and if it's too much shining, too many lights, then we are distracted and don't see what is the real substance that is behind. Massimo.
Okay, this is an open answer, and in this situation, I must specify two aspects. One, as a professionist. As a professionist, which collaborate with the Studio Vallicelli, I can say that you must be curious, and you must necessarily update your cultural background. So not every day, every 6 months, every year, you must introduce something new features inside your workflow. It's not necessary to become a specialist of representation, but it must be important to understand how representation can involve in the design process, and which value can give. So which value we must give to representation, because for us who are professionals of design, as I said in the last answer, it's important, but is not necessary at the beginning of the process. But I must specify my answer relating my position inside university. So like a professor, like a teacher, like a researcher, look into new generations of designers or architects. They must be curious. They must design with their mind. They must design with their hand. They must design with pencil and pens. They must sketch in digital way with graphic tablets, for example, and they must understand what is three-dimensional thinking. Without this condition, there is no possibility to become a good specialist of representation. You can use the best software ever, but there is no possibility to become there is no possibility to arrive a good result.
Very, very good suggestion. And okay, there was this series, The Queen's Gambit, in which, I don't know if you saw this on Netflix, in which the main character was watching the ceiling. She didn't even need to play chess for real. She just was thinking. So we can see the space in our head. We can project in our mind, even if we are in the bed. We don't need always to focus on computers and lose our time only on that, because if we focus on something else, it can be better even the other process. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, Massimo. Yes, you wanted to say something else?
No. Okay. I have finished. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you guys. Davide, Florian, and Massimo, thank you very much. I say bye to you. Thank you for participating. And
okay, bye everybody. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. Bye.
Nice to meet you all.
Okay, so we stay in
Leonardo, mi senti? All the people are get out?
Yes, I think the call restarted.
Leonardo, I'm in a hurry. I have to go, guys. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
It was very nice to meet you.
So we go to the configuration with 3 guests, with the interface with 3 guests. We had technical problems. Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for staying these other 20 minutes to go on, guys, because I would like to interact with you. We are all administrating and moderating groups. So I would like us to be helpful even in the technical part. Let's go deep a bit about rendering. I did a poll on LUMION user group 1 month ago, knowing that we could interact in these events, and asked to people what they want to know more, what kind of problems they have, what is better to investigate. First of all, I will honestly skip the first part because, like always, they were asking effects for LUMION. And I think that is not very useful to just to have, it's not a recipe. There are no effects that work all the time. What do you think about?
Yes, I know, especially for beginners, they want to get the same kind of view master user is going to get on his renders. And they believe that by sharing the effect file, they're going to get the same results. I would like to encourage them to actually try the effect tab. Lumion has a very intuitive way of setting up your scene, and it's going to help you because, as you said, there's no master key for every project that's going to work on every situation. Even if you get the same file that person you saw was using, you have to understand that it's fine-tuned to the amount of lighting, what are the colors on the screen, and if you take that and try to replicate it on a very similar scene, let's say you're making an interior scene and you're jumping to another interior scene, the same effect file without. Absolutely.
Yes, and it depends on the size of windows, direction, and some specific materials and so on.
Light income. So, absolutely.
I mean, I honestly think that I use Lumion since the very first version. I know it since one of the two developers was talking about it on a forum. I feel that it was still a couple of years before releasing it. Probably it was an idea, and it even had a different name. And then I started to work in an office with Lumion since version 2. And then I took it for myself and I started to use it professionally later. But of course, I was using, like you, other software like V-Ray, Corona as well, in many different offices and so on. So now what I can tell that the quality is increased, but still we need to use the classical approach. So probably focus on the model as much as you can, put this model on Lumion, maybe even before putting light, maybe even before putting material, just create the scene, go directly on the scene that you want to show. So save the camera first, put the light and start to see it in the preview, in the render preview. Then you will understand, does it enter a lot of light? No. So you can start tweaking and changing all parameters slowly, put one effect after another one. So it's practically kind of pyramid. Okay, so the base of this pyramid is probably arrive in the scene with a good model. It's useless to start to render if the model is not finished. Focus on the model. When it's almost finished, put in the scene and you know what you're gonna need. Maybe you put some main materials like the floor and walls that are always everywhere. Don't lose time focusing on details, put lights and see how it goes out. If we should do this on FX, what is your base? Do you have a, let's say, a timeline or a progression in FX? What you put first and what you put at the end? You start from some saved FX and then you fine tune them all.
Okay.
No.
Okay, thank you, Luis. Okay, personally, after importing my model in Lumion, I select a ready-made preset. It's the overcast.
Okay.
It's a choice for the interior render. Okay.
It is the ready-made. You mean the base from Lumion itself, or one that you made?
No, Lumion itself.
Okay, you start from that setup. Okay.
I begin from overcast before I put any materials or work on the effects in details or
you just open the window and put the glass so the light
just
can
put the glass
and you try that one.
To understand to begin searching which image I will take for the final render.
Okay.
Because when modeling, I'm user of AutoCAD. So the furniture I import from 3ds Max, and there is a process which takes longer than if we work with SketchUp or Revit. So it's not the same process. So the first thing I do is to put the overcast setting, and then pass to work on my materials. I mean the choices, the reflection, the gloss, and the other settings. There is something I didn't face a problem to learn fast Lumion is that I know V-Ray. I know how light bounce. I know what mean material, reflection, gloss, bump, etc. So I didn't face a problem to master Lumion for interior or exterior.
Okay. So we have similar approach, and maybe the only difference is that for example, working with Rhino, I could use Rhino like the software in which to put everything. But honestly, I saw that it's better for me to model as less as I can in Rhino. And I don't like to have any finished project in Rhino because I want to use it like it's just an empty box. I'm even a teacher of Revit. So sometimes I use Revit that, like, as you know, is very complicated if you need to do an interior, okay? Because you cannot bring furnitures there. So I use it to create the box. It's easy because maybe you can have a window easily, same for a door. Sometimes you need to take a specific one. So I leave just empty space and then I put that one in Lumion or in Rhino, because the main project is a simple box actually. And all these furnitures, even if I draw and I model by myself, or if I use Marvelous or other softwares more complicated, or Sculpt for having some special pieces, they are all different parts, like different elements of a library. Then I'm gonna put just in Lumion, and I can do this even very late. Actually, what is good is that if you work fast, if you work with a light model, you work very fast and you can go on in everything and just focusing on the final result with the detailed, high detailed model at the very end. Otherwise, you're gonna have this burden to bring with you all the time.
I also believe that you shouldn't be afraid of making prototype scenes and use the presets when working on a prototype, because one of the main advantages of Lumion is that it's gonna let you make a usable scene in very few hours. Even if, for example, if you're working a prototype, you can set up a prototype in a matter of minutes. And for example, for me, I like to have the prototype scene with the priest models for the first showcase, and when working on the final on the final scene that's going to be presented to the client, that's where I like to set up the scene and effects from the beginning, from scratch. The thing is, don't be afraid to use prototype scenes to see what you are working with and build up from there.
Okay, so maybe in the starting phase, you just use one of that because you use it even to design your project. And then the final one you start. Do you have some preset that you save it by yourself, or you do every time from zero?
For the client presentations, I always start from zero. I don't use pre-saved presets for exactly the same thing we spoke earlier, that even very similar scenes aren't going to work the same. And when you have powerful enough software, you're able to set up very easily every time.
Okay. And so practically we work similar on this. Like I was saying before, so it's 10 years that I use it, and let's say that probably a render a day, I don't know, 3,000 renders.
Really?
Maybe. But yes, I mean, what I show on our group is just a very, very small part because of just my lessons. So are some job that I do in 1-2 hours. But since I started to work with Lumion, maybe first 2-3 years, only a few renders, because still was not at that level, honestly. So V-Ray was used more times. But with V-Ray, of course, you need 1 month to do something very good. Yes. Or a big project. So you can be so productive. Instead, with Lumion, now it's almost like this. It's even kind of an hobby, because if I have time, I prefer to just have fun creating some new scene rather than watching TV. Or it's so easy now that I can even do both. I watch a movie and then do a render in the same moment on the monitor. So, I mean, making so many, I honestly saw that there's no difference at all in my process. I prefer to start every time from zero. It's crazy. I would expect me to save some preset, to save some material, but 90% is made every time from zero.
Yes.
Even if it gets always easier.
Yes, just for materials, sometimes we need to save our materials because here, for example, in my country, we have some materials that are possible to work with them. It's not imported, so we usually use them in construction. So if I get a good result with some materials, I save them to use them in another project.
Yeah, maybe yes. The textures, of course, yes.
Yes.
And do you realize materials and textures of materials from pictures sometimes?
I use Quicksilver Bridge now, as I have an account on Epic Game. So
me too.
I
directly download
lucky,
it. You don't need to use the bridge sometime, no?
I'm lucky. I'm lucky. I got a free account, so I can download what I want. Now I began to use Megascan materials. So the bump, the displacement, and the diffuse. I downloaded some 3D assets. Are useful. I'm testing and practicing to learn more how to use them with LUMION.
Yeah, I mean, they are very useful. I mean, the quality is very high. And I even like the fact that for each material, you can decide what to download or not. You can just set it so that you can decide maybe not to overdo, because sometimes 8 key is too much. You don't need it in some scene, or you can't use it good if you want to do a movie. But anyway, I find that in that library, we miss architectural things a bit. It's more for video games. I mean, if I should create a medieval village, it would be perfect. But for modern architecture, we still miss something there. It's more for video games, probably, that are set in a specific way. Anyway, there are a lot of resources from SketchUp textures to texture even, or so many that are even free. And softwares, I use some softwares I create by myself. I use Substance, Painter, sometime from zero. I mean, there are many softwares. I use it in some offices. And what I see that, of course, in Lumion, there are some small problems, because still we don't have all textures that you can have in other softwares, like in Corona and V-Ray and in Unreal. You only have few. You have this channel for normals and for displacement. That is a very good improvement now, even if it's, of course, just an effect, not a real 3D displacement. So if you watch it from the corner of a wall will be still a line. And what I really don't like is that we need to Photoshop to change this. So I focus a lot of my time inventing a lot of solutions not to Photoshop, because I think that Photoshopping the render, maybe only the last time or for the final drawing for an important contest, but Photoshopping in Lumion goes against everything that Lumion represents, because it's the fast way to have instantly a revision, like Revit. Revise it instantly. We need to change instantaneously with the customer. I don't have to lose my time to Photoshop. That's why even I can correct light, I can correct everything in Lumion, like a small post-production. I can do it there. And so I avoid losing time on that.
I don't completely agree with that, because mainly with the fact that the comment that it goes against everything Lumion represents. Lumion has the tools to, gives you the channels to be able to do very good post productions with the materials it's going to give you. It's going to give you the specular normal reflection channel. And for example, to me, one of the things that you're simply not able to get from a Lumion render, that's not possible because of the engine, is getting high dynamic range images. that in dark projects or sometimes in interiors, it's very useful to have the additional channels that Lumion is gonna give you and make the final high dynamic range image. That's the one you're gonna use, even if it's not for a contest, but to give it to the client. I like photoshopping most of my final products.
So you like to Photoshop them? Honestly, I mean, it's not that I'm against Photoshop, because actually it's even one of the stuff that I teach to my students, and even in university I teach this. I teach how to use this, let's say, multi-level composition. It's called compositing. It's called in many different ways. But what it is that you have something that is good, but you want to improve it. So you need different things to make this good. But what I do as a professional is not always this. I mean, if I have a customer that is asking me a project, render is just a way to communicate with him, and is normally included in the price. I'm not asking much for it. So the big difference, the big reason why I use Lumion is that in my normal workflow, it makes me arrive to that result easily, and I save time and money because I'm paid for the project and not losing my time 1 week to do a render that is completely useless to the project and is not paid. Of course, for a big customer, for yachts or for some other stuff, I like to do the final, we call it a consegna finale. That means that is at the deadline, you show something very good. Okay. But if you think that not all customers want to invest in a specific good render, and so you need to find the good balance between quality and time. And if you think that many times what they prefer is a simple video rather than a super artistic rendering, is very complicated to find the right balance. For example, I asked to many customers judgment, like talking after the project was finished. What do you think is better? These 3 amazing renders, perfect 8K resolution, all effects, perfect reflections, and some Photoshop in which I even used deep mask techniques to have the control of the perfect blur and so on. Or you prefer to have a video? Honestly, all of them prefer the video. And even more, even if I want to be a director in some way, I love to do videos, even more, a lot of them prefer 360 degrees images that normally have a lot lower quality, as this surprised me a lot.
Of course.
Because I think that maybe we are professional, we appreciate the quality, but maybe some customers cannot even see it.
As professional, yes. Sorry, Luis. As professional, I know here too, Leo, they ask for video animation, sometimes 316 degrees view, VR, panorama, etc. As architect, we know the project, Leo, and it's normal that a client asks for a video animation to know more about his project, because if we give him or her a simple image, maybe he don't understand the concept. So many of our clients here too, the 3D is requested today. I mean,
yeah, you're right, because even a couple of customers that were smart enough to investigate about Lumion, and they asked me directly the Lumion viewer. So practically no render quality, but at least they can move inside the project.
That's the target. That's the target. Luis, it's you.
I think it's very interesting that you say, for example, that it's difficult to convince the clients to pay for the render. I manage it in a different way. What I tell them is the render is one of the tools I'm going to use to sign your project. It's not different. The plan, of course, the architectural plans are going to be the base where we're going to begin working, but most of the design is going to be decided on 3D. So I don't tell it like, you have your project done, you want to render it. For me, it's I'm working in your project. The render is going to complement the project most of the time.
Okay,
the
so
plans
very
are
smart move. I mean, if you put like this, is like you're saying, listen, you want the perfect house, the perfect project. So I want you to collaborate and to be with me inside it. So we need to have Lumion that we can take some decision together. You can see it even during this phase of project. It's not just to show it.
not in a way of can you customer help me design your project? It's
No,
more
that's
like
no, of course, it's very dangerous.
no. I as an architect, I'm gonna use this tool, which is the 3D model, to finish your design. So to have a very, for example, in the very complex residential designs I do, I require the 3D model. It's for example, it's taking out the 3D project is like saying, I want you to draw these plans, but I'm gonna take these pens out, and you can only use these ones. For me, it's necessary, very joint part of the
Okay, so you would do it anyway. You would model it anyway, even if it was not. I mean, sometime I'm not. And yes. I would never render, honestly. I render just for fun or for the customer, but I don't know if it's because of my background teaching geometry or in geometry. I really don't need to 3D model a project. I can draw it even just by plan and sections, but sometimes it's complicated to draw these sections. So sometimes it depends on the shapes. I need to model to create from it sections and plans. But I use 3D only for the customer. It's not for myself.
Okay.
Okay, just personally, I sometimes model and just for practice, Leonardo, to master the software we have. I don't know if you did understand my way.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, sometimes I have a residential house. The client take his plan, and I just want to model it for me.
Okay, for you. Even after, I mean, even if he agreed, then he start to realize any way you want to have it. Oh, yes. Of course. Honestly, we even need to say that now is 2020, so is actually, guys, the incredible amount of 26 years, 25 years that I model and that I render. So I'm starting to get in some way.
It was 12 at the time.
Yeah, I mean, after 5-6 years, I was the best moment, was the positive climax. Okay, so I was enthusiastic, and computers were starting to run good, where you could start to have renders, because 25 years ago to have a good render was impossible. Then we saw first V-Ray, some radiosity, and some, let's say, some results, some bounces of light. So I was very enthusiastic, but it's at least 10 years that I'm less enthusiastic of the process itself. Of course, I'm happy of results and I like to learn, and I learn all kinds of softwares, but it's changing a bit. So, I mean, now for me, it's more challenging to take complicated things and realize and make real, or like try different styles. And in this, Lumion is interesting, that can fit with the right poetic. This is about the language of communication that render is very important to me, because it doesn't have to be automatically a photorealistic render. It doesn't have to be always like this. If I want to investigate, if I want to communicate with someone, sometimes I don't need to have a shining glass or a big light, or big contrast, understand? And this, now that you are like me, moderating, administrating big groups of people, we see every day 100 drawings, And I'm seeing that there is a kind of internationalism that I don't appreciate much, because few people experiment. They all want to have the receipt, they ask the settings, even because they want to have that look, but it doesn't have to have that look. It has to be different. It has to be you should try to express
Also,
it
you're
your
not gonna get
poetic.
it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only about style, because some people have a bit of style and they put a bit of light, they blur that light a lot of contrast and deep shadows, and they do very, very exaggerated perspective, and some object that you can recognize. It's not only that. Maybe I didn't express this enough in my rendering because they are just fast lessons, but when we have a project, there is a contest. We need to show the idea, and so the idea has another language, and each project has a specific language. And even in international contests, we see that they are going to get all uniform. There is a very good teacher that I appreciate, that is Luigi Prestinenza Puglisi, and works in Italy. He even teaches in Rufa, same university of mine, and he was in my university of architecture, and he said something very interesting, because he's an expert of projects of the historical approach. He studies all architects, and so he's watching this, that now rendering as this. I make it simple because of course his thought was a lot more complex, but to make it simple is that we are starting to be global even in that. And we lose our traditions, our identity. And as architects, we should try to transmit some values, try to be deep in the context. And many times, all houses around are just white boxes.
Yes.
Understand? So all these became uniforms. White boxes, a lot of clouds, dark skies, and a lot of contrast, and these same puppets everywhere, characters.
Yes.
So to keep the identity using softwares, of course, means a lot of work more.
Yes, Lumion is going to do a lot of heavy lifting on your renders, but you need to remember that the main subject of your render is not how nice your clouds or effects or cars are. As an architect, you need to have a very good project to present, and the render is only gonna help you present it better. But a good render is not going to be able to bridge the gap between a very bad project and a good one.
Yes, yes. Sometimes we look at our group and we see some renders that they don't focus on the project.
Yeah,
they put trees,
roads, cars
and
in front of it, a big car.
Yes, yes, but they don't focus on the main subject of their project, is the building. So
yeah, absolutely,
that's why sometimes I comment on some works. I tell them to use the rules of third, to compose their image, to focus more on their project, not using Lumion just to put a tree and getting a better render.
Yeah, because it's full of tree. I mean, you can create a forest, but it's the project that you need to show.
Lumion is a very powerful tool that if you're not careful, it's going to make your project go into the foreground and just be scenery if you let it.
Yeah. You need to take it under control and to use this carefully. All small objects, okay. Yes. So before closing, guys, first of all, thank you very much. And not only thank you for participating here, but thank you even for what you do in your group and in my group. And I like that we interact. You write on my group, I write on your group. So, I mean, we exchange, we all participate, and we talk every day. So that's very nice for me. And even because we face same problems, we go on in the same field together. So it's nice to have someone to interact with. And I wanted to close giving each of you the possibility to give a small suggestion. In this case, it's not like before to leave the last thought before saying goodbye to our audience, but give the last suggestion, the best one, a small trick that you have for Lumion.
Okay, so for me, Leonardo, just for materials, I recommend users to pay attention to advanced settings, because most of users take the materials like it is from the Lumion library materials, but they don't pay attention to weathering, to edge, to many advanced settings.
Very good, very good. To you, Luis.
I think the one of the things that's gonna differentiate you, one of the tells that tells me if you're an amateur a render artist or a very good one is the context. Not only your building and the subjects, the ambientation you're gonna have on your project, but it's very important to have it contextualized. If I'm able to look to the infinite on your project, I don't like it. Now, one of the main tells of
course,
an amateur
is many times even a matter of time. But of course, if you want to have a final product and you can see the horizon, at least there is not a sea. I mean, if it's the sea, okay. But
yes, of course.
If you see that green line, okay, there's something wrong. It's not working. Yeah, very good. So then to try to emulate you, I would say this one. For me, the best suggestion is in interior, never go down than 25 millimeters of camera length. In exteriors, even try to do something more. Sometimes test yourself with a zoom, use 40 millimeters. It's impossible that you are outside. You have 50 meters from you and the building, and then you need to use 15 millimeters and to go really directly the column near and to see all these objects in perspective. Remember that this focal length has a reason, is the distance that you should watch this render from the monitor. Even if it's scaled, if you make it so wide, you need to put your eye in front of the monitor to be realistic. Otherwise, it will never work. So pay attention on that. Don't be scared to investigate and to use zoom on some details or from outside and so on. Okay. Okay, guys, thank you very much. See you every day on our groups on Facebook. Good job. Thank you very much. See you soon. To our audience, thank you for participating. We are very happy of having you here and, of course, on our channels and on our groups. Thank all our group members for interacting with us. So don't forget to like the video, subscribe the channel, and if you want more events and special show and contents, let us know. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to finish with always with my sentence, a buon render.
Ciao, Leonardo.
Это так волнительно. Я, наверное, не буду спать всю ночь и буду только работать. И так хочется посмотреть.